You see, ladies and gentlemen, one of the most underestimated traits in a man today is mystery. And when I say mystery, I don't mean playing games or acting like you're too cool to care. No, I mean being a man who is focused, purposeful, and not constantly available for explanation. A man who knows where he's going and doesn't feel the need to advertise every little detail. That kind of energy creates a natural sense of curiosity in a woman's mind. She starts to wonder, what is he up to? Why hasn't he called yet? Who's on his mind? And that wondering, that quiet curiosity is the foundation of emotional tension. And emotional tension is what keeps a woman interested. Now, let me be clear. I'm not here to promote manipulation or dishonesty. I'm talking about creating a healthy sense of unpredictability by simply being who you are while living a life that excites you more than any one person ever could. When you're deeply immersed in your purpose, when your energy is directed toward growth, ambition, and your mission, something interesting happens. You stop being overly accessible. You stop checking in constantly. You stop trying to prove your worth. And when that happens, a woman begins to feel the shift. She notices you're not always waiting by your phone. She notices that you're no longer available for every small thing. And guess what? She starts to worry. She worries not because you're doing anything wrong, but because she can feel that you are occupied by something more important, and that something is your vision. That's attractive. That's powerful. Women don't worry about men who are always there, always chasing, always explaining. They worry about men who are grounded, who have something greater pulling them forward. Because deep down, every woman wants to know that the man she's interested in is going somewhere, and that she might not be guaranteed a front row seat unless she earns it. See, the truth is, when you're too predictable, you become boring. You become easy to figure out. But when you're a man with depth, when you keep some things to yourself, not out of fear or avoidance, but out of self-respect and vision, you create space for her to lean in, to ask questions, to initiate, to wonder. And that's where the dynamic shifts. A man who reveals everything too soon leaves no room for imagination. And imagination, especially in romantic relationships, is powerful. It keeps her emotionally engaged. She starts to analyze your behavior. She replays your words. She checks her phone more often, looking for your name. And all of that happens not because you're trying to make her worry, but because you're not trying to impress her at all. You're just being a man on a mission. So don't overshare. Don't overcommit your time. Let your actions speak. Let your silence teach. Let your purpose protect your energy. Because when you're a man who's too busy building to constantly explain, a woman begins to worry. And that worry, that's not fear. That's investment. That's interest. And that's how the game quietly starts to turn in your favor. Let's talk about emotional discipline. Because if you really want to make a woman think about you, worry about you, wonder about you, this is where the shift begins. As women, we're intuitive. We can pick up on the smallest changes in a man's tone, body language, or behavior. And when a man is emotionally all over the place, reacting to everything, always explaining himself, constantly needing validation, it's easy to figure him out. He's predictable. And let me tell you, predictable emotions don't spark interest. They don't create any space for wonder. Now, I'm not saying don't show emotion at all. That's not what this is about. I'm saying manage your emotions like a man who is centered. Be calm, be still, be measured. Because emotional discipline is not about hiding what you feel. It's about choosing when and how you show it. That kind of control is powerful. And whether she says it out loud or not, when a woman sees you practicing that control, she pays attention. She begins to wonder, why isn't he reacting? What's going on in his mind? Does he feel something and just won't show it? That's when she starts analyzing you in her head. That's when she starts to worry, not out of fear, but because she can't figure you out as easily anymore. And trust me, being a little unreadable is not a bad thing. When a woman can't read you like an open book, when she can't predict exactly how you'll respond or what you'll say, you become more interesting. You become more attractive. Because now she's engaged. She's not just observing you. She's emotionally invested in trying to understand you. And that's exactly where you want to be. Some men think they need to pour out their hearts to keep a woman close. They think being overly vulnerable from day one is what builds connection. But that's not always the case. Emotional openness is valuable, but only when it's backed by strength. A man who's constantly venting, always reacting, or always seeking emotional reassurance sends the signal that he's unstable, or worse, needy, and neediness is never attractive. What women admire, what really captures our attention, is a man who stays composed under pressure. A man who doesn't explain every mood, a man who can be silent without it meaning something is wrong. That silence, it speaks volumes. It creates a quiet tension. She starts to wonder, is he upset? Is he fine without me? Is he thinking about someone else? And just like that, without you saying a word, she's invested. She's emotionally checking in. She's thinking about you. This is why I always say, let your presence speak louder than your emotions. Let your steadiness be what sets you apart. Because in a world where everyone's reacting, oversharing, and seeking attention, a man who is emotionally grounded stands out. He becomes magnetic. So don't give everything away. Don't react to every test. Sit back, breathe, respond with clarity or not at all. Because your silence, when it comes from a place of strength, not avoidance, is louder than any emotional outburst. And that silence, that control, that's what makes her worry in the best way possible. You know, there's something incredibly powerful about being a man who's consistent in character but not always predictable in behavior. And I know that might sound a little contradictory at first, but stay with me. What I'm saying is this: women are drawn to stability. We like to know that a man stands for something, that he's reliable in who he is and how he treats people, in how he shows up. But at the same time, we also crave the thrill of not always knowing what's coming next. That little spark of unpredictability, that's what keeps us emotionally alert. That's what keeps us thinking about you. And yes, sometimes even worrying about you. Now, let me be clear. I'm not talking about being flaky or emotionally unavailable. That's not attractive. I'm talking about creating a dynamic where you don't fall into the same routines over and over again, where you're not texting her at the exact same time every day or saying the same things or always being the one to initiate. Because when your behavior becomes too routine, she stops having to think about it. And when she stops thinking, she stops feeling. You see, emotional engagement is triggered when a woman starts wondering what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're going to do next. But if she already knows the answer before you even speak, that mystery is gone. And when mystery disappears, attraction usually starts to fade with it. That's why it's important to stay consistent in your values. Yes, always. But allow some flexibility in how you express those values. Be solid, but not predictable. Sometimes don't text her first. Sometimes take a little longer to respond. Sometimes cancel plans, not because you're playing games, but because your time is valuable and you've got other things going on. Let her see that your world is bigger than just her. That alone sends a powerful message. It says, I like you, but I'm not dependent on you. And that energy, that balance of being present but not predictable, it keeps her on her toes. She starts wondering, did I do something wrong? Is he still as interested as he was before? What changed? And in that wondering, she becomes more invested. She starts putting in more effort, even if subtly. And that effort, you don't have to be dramatic or manipulative to create this dynamic. It's really about living your life fully, letting her see that while she's important, she's not your entire focus. And that means changing the rhythm from time to time, keeping things fresh, not falling into autopilot. When you show her that you're not going to be boxed into a predictable routine, she pays attention. She starts reading into things. She starts looking for signs, and yes, she starts to worry a little, not because she's afraid of losing you, but because she doesn't want to be replaced. She starts to realize that your attention is not guaranteed, it's earned. And when a woman starts trying to earn your attention, the dynamic has already shifted, because now she's emotionally involved. Now she's invested. And that right there is the sweet spot. That's where real attraction begins to deepen. Let me say this as clearly as I can. If you want to make a woman worry about you in the way that matters, you must raise your standards. You have to become the kind of man who knows exactly what he wants and what he will not tolerate. And more importantly, you have to be willing to walk away when those standards aren't met. That's where the power is. That's where a woman starts to think twice, because nothing shakes a woman more than realizing she doesn't have full access to you unless she brings value to your life. Now, I know that might sound harsh to some people, but it's not about being cold or arrogant. It's about self-respect. It's about refusing to beg for attention or settle for crumbs. A man who has standards is a man who demands respect without having to raise his voice. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't keep explaining why he deserves better. He just quietly expects it. And his actions show it. And let me tell you something, women notice that. We may not always say it out loud, but we feel it. When a man holds himself with that kind of quiet strength, we start questioning ourselves. We start asking, am I doing enough? Is he slipping away? What if he decides I'm not worth his time? And those questions, they're not rooted in fear, they're rooted in attraction. Because suddenly she realizes that you're not like every other man who's just trying to please her, trying to impress her, trying to earn her validation. No, you've already validated yourself. You're not looking to be chosen, you're doing the choosing. And when that becomes clear, she starts to worry in the best possible way. She becomes more intentional with her words, more thoughtful with her actions, because she doesn't want to lose access to that energy, to your energy. But here's the thing. Raising your standards doesn't just mean having a long list of requirements for others. It means you hold yourself to a higher standard first. It means you don't waste time in toxic situations. You don't allow disrespect, even in small doses. You don't entertain games. You don't try to convince anyone to stay. You move with purpose, and when something or someone doesn't align with that purpose, you step away gracefully, calmly, without drama. And the moment you do that, a shift happens. She begins to wonder why you're not chasing her like others do, why you're not trying harder, why you seem so at peace even as you pull away. And that shift creates space for her to self-reflect, to question, to step up. Because deep down, women admire men who know what they want and refuse to settle for less. It shows strength, it shows vision, and it shows that being with you is a privilege, not a guarantee. So don't be afraid to set the bar high. Don't be afraid to walk away when it's not met. Because when you show a woman that you value yourself above your desire to be with her, she'll start to worry, not because you're trying to hurt her, but because she knows deep down she could lose a man who actually knows his worth. There's something deeply attractive about a man who is growing quietly, not the kind who posts every gym session or announces every little achievement, but the one who just moves. The one who levels up without making a show of it. That man, he creates a shift in energy, and without even trying, he starts to make a woman worry. Not because he's doing anything wrong, but because his silent evolution makes her pause and think, wait a minute, what's going on with him? Who is he becoming? Is he still looking at me the same way? Growth changes how people relate to you, especially when you're not doing it to prove anything. When you're improving your mind, your body, your finances, your lifestyle, not for attention, but because you have a standard for your life, it's magnetic. It sends a clear message without saying a word. I'm building something. I'm not staying where I was. And when a woman picks up on that energy, especially if she's used to being the center of your focus, it creates a kind of emotional urgency. She starts to notice the changes. She starts to feel the distance, even if you haven't gone anywhere. Because the truth is, your elevation speaks for itself. One of the most powerful things you can do as a man is to stop announcing your moves and just make them. Go quiet, work in silence, upgrade in the background, because that silence, it speaks. It makes her wonder where you are, what you're thinking, and more importantly, why you've gone so focused. When you stop being as accessible, when your conversations get shorter, not out of disrespect, but because your schedule is full of purpose, she starts to notice. She starts comparing the old version of you to the new one, and if she's not growing at the same pace, she'll feel that gap. She'll worry about losing her place in your life. And listen, you don't have to say a word to create this effect. You don't have to announce your gym progress or your new business or your mental clarity. Let it show through your energy. Let it show in how you walk, how you speak, how you carry yourself. Let it show in the decisions you make, the boundaries you set, the time you no longer waste. When a woman sees you prioritizing your goals over constant attention, it tells her something very powerful, that you're not sitting around waiting for her to decide your worth. You've already decided. And you know what that does? It shifts the emotional dynamic. She starts checking in more often. She starts watching your stories more closely. She starts asking questions like, what's new with you? Even though she already knows something's changed. Because when you level up quietly, you create space for curiosity. You create distance without rejection. And that space, that's where her worry begins. But here's the most important part. Don't do it for her. Do it for you. Because the man who grows for himself, who transforms in silence, who doesn't seek applause, is the one who commands the most attention without ever asking for it. And when she sees that, she'll worry. She'll worry that someone else might notice the man you're becoming before she reclaims her place by your side. Let's talk about attention, because this is one of the biggest areas where a lot of men go wrong without even realizing it. You give it too freely. You hand it out like it's unlimited, like it has no value. Constantly texting, always complimenting, calling all the time, responding immediately, thinking that the more attention you give, the more she'll like you. But it doesn't always work that way. In fact, it often does the opposite. The truth is, anything that's too available, too easy, starts to lose its impact. And if you really want a woman to worry about you, to feel your absence when you pull away, you have to make her earn your attention. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying be cold or play mind games. I'm saying value your time, your energy, your emotional availability. Give those things to people who show up with the same level of effort and respect. Because when you give your full attention to someone who hasn't earned it, you're sending the wrong message. You're saying, I'll chase you no matter what. I'll be here whether or not you reciprocate. And that creates imbalance. It makes her feel secure too soon. And when a woman feels like she doesn't have to do anything to keep you interested, the tension disappears. And with it, so does her curiosity. Attention is a form of currency. The more valuable you treat it, the more valuable others will perceive it. That means you don't always answer right away. You don't always jump to respond to her messages. You don't drop your plans the second she calls. You move with purpose. You make it clear through your actions that your time isn't just available to anyone at any moment. And when she starts noticing that your attention comes in moments, not constant streams, she'll start to feel it. She'll start to wonder, why isn't he texting like before? Is something wrong? Is he losing interest? That wondering, that's where the emotional shift begins. When a woman has to work a little bit for your time, she becomes more thoughtful with hers. She becomes more careful with how she speaks to you, how she interacts with you. Because now, your attention has weight. It's not something she can take for granted anymore. And this isn't about being toxic or manipulative. It's about self-worth. It's about saying, I know what I bring to the table, and I won't overextend myself for someone who isn't meeting me halfway. And let me tell you something. When a woman starts investing her energy to keep your focus, she becomes emotionally involved. She starts checking in more, putting in effort, thinking about how to reconnect with you, all because you stopped making her the center of your attention and made your purpose the center of your life. So don't be afraid to hold back sometimes. Don't be afraid to let her reach out. Give her space to miss you. Because when a woman realizes your attention isn't guaranteed, when she feels like she could lose access to it at any time, she starts to worry. And that worry isn't about fear, it's about value. She sees that she has something to lose. And that's when she starts trying to hold on tighter.